Alright everyone, welcome back. Today we have to talk about that dirty word, politics, because it has a massive influence over immigration, whether you think so or not. Now, where it applies is Portugal is kind of somewhat, at present, you would class it as politically unstable. Now, ever since they got rid of an authoritarian dictatorship all the way back in the early 70s, they've been trying to get their foothold in Western democratic values, and they've somewhat succeeded. But as a result of that massive change, there is a lot of voice for such a small country. Now, they have a 230 seat assembly in the House of the Republic, which is a lot of people. And, you know, in comparison to Australia, the lower house only has something around 140, 145 people, where, you know, I know it's 150, I don't know. You need 76 seats for a majority, I think. I'm going back to my schooling. It's kind of embarrassing. But anyway, so to get a majority in Portugal, you need 116 seats. Now that is a lot of seats, and to get a majority is kind of pretty hard. So there is also a lot of different parties which attract votes. So there's not really one just dominant party or two real dominant parties. There are many parties that are winning seats at the moment, and Portugal is going into their third election in just 3 years. So that's just a bit of a breakdown. Okay. So what is happening is there is a massive anti-immigration sentiment flooding Portugal at present, and it's kind of means that if you are looking at this from external, because you're looking at potentially moving to Portugal, it was your plan, you might have just started the process to move to Portugal, this could change things. And in no way am I trying to influence votes of Portuguese people. I'm not a voter. This is purely aimed to inform potential immigrants. So, what does that mean? Everywhere around the world, including Australia, has really kind of stepped away from far right sentiment, so far right wing sentiment. So, for example, the parties around the centre left have consistently won elections all around the world ever since. Aside from America, every other country, the centre left party generally has been the winning party. Now, in Portugal, that could change. There is a real possibility that the Chega party could get up, and they're regarded as a far right-wing party. Now, the reason being is, and all I can do is respect the voters' decision on this. As I said, I'm an immigrant to Portugal. While it may or may not affect me personally, I think, you have to respect their decision. And yeah, so the far right wing has an agenda to really stamp down on immigration, because Portugal has a big illegal immigrant problem at the moment. A lot of people overstaying their visas, and so that is going to be the focus, and they want to get into mass deportations and things like that. Not to El Salvador, but
Thousands of people in Portugal have protested against uncontrolled immigration in a rally called by the far-right Chega party. The demonstrators marched through the capital Lisbon with the Portuguese national flag and carried banners bearing slogans like expulsion of immigrants who commit crimes. Chega party leader André Ventura said those who wanted to come to Portugal to work and contribute were welcome.
A imigração não pode ser vista só na segurança social. Tem que ser visto, por exemplo, num drama que ontem foi debatido nas ruas, que é o drama da habitação. Se deixarmos entrar 15% de estrangeiros em Portugal, não haverá casas para toda a gente. E não vale a pena andarmos a fingir que há, porque não há.
Tensions surfaced as the march approached working-class neighbourhoods with large immigrant populations. Some protesters engaged in a standoff with pro-immigration activists in favour of a Portugal open to foreigners. The number of foreigners living in Portugal jumped by more than 33% last year to reach more than 1 million. That's around 1/10 of the total population, according to the Agency for Integration, Migration and Asylum.
But it could also mean that they really clamp down on the bureaucracy around moving to Portugal from other countries. They even they've hinted at militarizing the border even. So that could make it a lot harder just to get in and out of Portugal, even by car. I've crossed the border a few times into Spain, and not once have I ever been stopped, pulled over, saw a road stop, anything. So you can just come and go as you please through this Schengen zone. So I'm not sure. I don't want to put words in the Chega party's mouth. I haven't followed that closely, just kind of looked at their immigration policies. So I'm just kind of giving a backdrop of what it could mean. So yeah, at the moment, if you look at the current setup of these parties, okay, so before this election, the Chega party just had 44 seats. So to all of a sudden get to a majority, you're looking at 116 seats. So it's actually going to have to be a monumental swing in that direction for that to occur. But I guess I just want to put it out there that it could happen. And as I said, you got to respect the Portuguese voters on this. Now, the reason why there is this anti-immigration sentiment at the moment is because housing prices have skyrocketed immensely, meaning that the average Portuguese person cannot afford to live in a lot of time their traditional towns and cities. Like a lot of people in Lisbon have been driven out, and Porto, same sort of thing. So you've got to respect it. The other thing too is cost of living due to increased immigration and demand and supply on goods and services, that is increasing as well. And there was a third option, I gotta remember it. So housing, cost of living. Anyway, you get the point. All right, everything's increasing at a huge rate, and it's really pissing a lot of the local Portuguese people off. And you can really feel the anti-foreigner sentiment in a lot of circles. Now, doesn't make them racist, okay? What it means is, and in a way, it's kind of like Australia. Like if you compare it, how there's people that are a little bit against the immigration, not because of, race of who's coming in, but it's all to do with the fact that housing costs are skyrocketing, the cost of living has become so unaffordable, and it's the same here in Portugal. So you have to really think about, well, what's their reasons, and is it fair? And unfortunately, in this case, you can probably really deem it that it is actually fair that they could view it this way. Now, I'm not endorsing this party by any stretch of the imagination. I'm just putting out there that it's not beyond the realms of possibility that this party could get up. They're actually very, very popular at the moment. And so, yeah, watch this space. I will do an update next week because I think that it's important to get all the information, and because there's so many seats, 230 seats contested, it could mean that it's going to take a while for the close seats to be counted and recounted and the final results published. All right, so to quickly run through the main parties at the moment. So, what does the polling suggest? All right, the main party, which is a centre-right coalition, so kind of like the LNP in Australia, or more the liberal side of the LNP, the National Party are a bit more on the far right side of the parliament, and that's probably why they lost the election. All right, so the Democratic Alliance is the centre-right. They just had a no confidence motion passed against them in the parliament, which is the problem with a hung parliament with so many seats, and you don't win anything close to a majority. So you're sitting in a minority government, and they can just get together and collude and just vote at will and just have election after election after election, hence the political instability. So this may not even be the last election in the next 12 months. There could be another election and another election after that, purely because they can't. No party can get that dominant amount of seats. So, yeah, anyway. So back to the polling. The Democratic Alliance, the centre-right party, is on 30% polling. Now, we know how accurate polling is at times. Polling can be quite all over the place. And it's really hard to know just how accurate it is. Portugal being a very small country, it could actually be pretty accurate. It's pretty accurate in Australia to a degree. In America, it's a bit inaccurate because of how hard polling is, from city polling to regional polling, and how there's a big difference. So here, there really isn't that rural versus city political landscape. Not that I understand anyway. I could be wrong, but there could be a bit more of that. So anyway, 32% is leading, is the largest polling for the Democratic Alliance, and they're the party that is currently in control. So we'll see what happens in that space. Now, the centre right, their policies are for immigration. I'm just scrolling through to have a look. The key policies: elimination of the manifestation of interest mechanism requiring migrants to have job contracts before moving to Portugal. So I guess it just means you don't have to have a job to move here as such. Prioritization of qualified professional students, individuals from Portuguese speaking countries, and family reunification cases. So that just means they're front of queue in terms of processing. Everyone else is just under. So I wouldn't be too worried. In other words, it's pretty much the status quo. It's what's happening now. There hasn't been an issue. I have never found a problem. I'm under the family reunification style case because I'm married to a Portuguese woman. So they try and keep family together. It's a very family orientated thing. It's not like in Australia where it's like, bye-bye, we don't like you, so too bad if you're in a family. Or in America, it's see you later, you can take your family with you. So I'm only exaggerating, don't come at me, people. All right, so they're the main policies. The introduction of quantitative objectives for immigration, focusing on security and integration. So yeah, it's not a big deal. It's pretty much just maintaining the status quo. All right, the Socialist Party there, the centre left. Okay, so like the Australian Labor Party, the Democrats in America, that sort of thing. So they're on 20%, 27% in the polling. So relatively even, and they'll probably end up just winning a fair bulk of the seats themselves. They're focused on streamlining I can't even pronounce it. Regularization processes for immigrants, including alternative methods that don't require returning to the country of origin. So, honestly, it's all pretty much stock standard stuff. There isn't anything that stands out in the two major parties here at present. If anything, the Socialist Party is perhaps a little bit more relaxed in terms of it. All right, but here's the Shaker Party. This is the third party, and they're around the 20% polling mark, which means they are destined to score quite a few seats, and their leader is quite popular. So they're proposing a national referendum on immigration quotas. They want to make immigration very, very strict. Advocacy for stronger border controls and the re-establishment of the defunct Border Security Service, which basically means you are literally having to go through a checkpoint every time you enter the country. And due to the amount of illegal immigrants that overstay their welcome, and you'd probably have to suggest there would be a lot of transient migrants that just hop around the Schengen zone, going from country to country to country to country to country, all on cars, and they're just not picked up. They just consistently live here, go work, cash in hand, and until they get caught and moved on, they just go to the next place around Europe. So I could understand that. I'm not totally against it. It's probably a bit too much of a free for all to not have it. I could understand where towns traverse borders. So I know there are some towns in Europe that the middle of the town is in one country and another country has the other side of town. It would get a bit much from, having to go to work to consistently show your citizen card or whatever, your bit proof that you're a European. So I can understand where some places it won't work, but I don't know. It would be an interesting one. They want to incorporate how can I put it politely, a Trump-style zero tolerance policy on illegal immigration. Again, to me, that is fair. All right, illegal immigration, they push job wages down because they will work extremely cheap while pushing cost of living up, and it kind of hurts the locals, and I can understand why these sort of measures could be pretty popular. However, this party has been really severely linked with racism and stuff as well. And mainly, I think it's because race is a little bit of a touchy subject here because of Portuguese colonies. Obviously, there's the Brazilian element, and there's a big anti-Brazilian feeling in Portugal because there's so many migrants coming over. And obviously, there's the African Portuguese communities as well. And I can really see this as a hotbed issue. And yeah, if they get up, it could be interesting times as far as, there's going to be large sections of the community that probably won't be happy. I don't know. As I said, I'm not advocating for or against any party in this group because to me, I can't vote, so I'm kind of staying out of it. I do have a preference though, but I'm not going to side with anyone. So I think we'll leave it there. I've really waffled on for a long time. So my advice for prospective immigrants is to watch this space closely, because I don't really see one party getting the majority vote, and the party that could surprise everyone and take it would mean that, you know, immigration could be really stalled for a lot of people. All right, that's really all I've got to add. As I said, I'll check in next week. I'll pass on the results and perhaps discuss what this means for the future. All right, like the video, subscribe to the channel. Have a great one.